All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Harold Shukla. I'm an outreach coordinator for Crossroads for Hope, formerly known as Cancer Support Community Central New Jersey, in partnership with Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey and Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. We're happy to welcome you to Cancer Disparities and Experiences of LGBTQ plus community. During today's presentation, Mental Health Amongst LGBTQ plus Caregivers, we'll discuss common experiences and self-care strategies for LGBTQ plus caregivers. Our presenters today are Vargas and Domonique Noel. Feel free to take over.
Okay. Hi, so to officially begin this presentation, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the indigenous peoples, the Lenape peoples whose traditional territory we're gathering here in New Jersey. I also want to acknowledge the history of genocide and slavery that have occurred for over 528 years upon these lands, and to acknowledge that the Lenape peoples are the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Also, I want to acknowledge our siblings of the Civil Rights Movement, African American and Black siblings, whom have made it possible for us to be able to have conversations such as these. And otherwise, I would not be able to be here in front of you at this moment. So my name is Vargas, and my pronouns are they, them, and I am the community-based counselor for SJE, which is Social Justice Education and LGBTQ Communities. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Domonique Noel, pronouns she, her, and hers, and I serve as part of a team of community cancer control specialists at the Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey, where I focus on HPV and LGBT health education and outreach. All right, so before we get into today's content, I want to administer a quick poll question. So the question is, true or false? LGBTQ adults are more likely to be caregivers than non-LGBTQ adults.
Okay, I just launched the poll, so you guys should be able to see it. Perfect.
I think we have like 9 people attending. So let me know when the percentage fills up.
Okay. Okay, we're at 5.
We got 5.
Oh, 6 now. So it's just taking a little while. I'll give it another 10 seconds because we still have people just coming on, so probably miss out on those. Okay. Do you want me to share the results, Tommy?
Yeah, you can share the results if you want. So 83% of people said true and 17% of people said false.
Okay.
All right, so before we get into a discussion about mental health among LGBTQ caregivers, I want to first define what caregiving is. So according to the national nonprofit organization called Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders, commonly known as SAGE, the term caregiving is defined as the act of providing physical, psychological, and/or emotional assistance to another person, typically for an extended period of time. In an aging population, an increasing number of people are becoming caregivers to look after family members and loved ones who depend on the assistance of caregivers for daily tasks and other life activities. There are many challenges which can go along with caregiving, including feeling stressed or overwhelmed and struggling to maintain the responsibilities that go along with caregiving, along with their other obligations, including employment, raising a family, and maintaining one's own mental health and well-being. All right. So what was your initial, or what is your initial reaction to this video?
You can always, so they might not be able to speak, but you can always just drop the comments in the chat. Yeah, unfortunately, in the webinar setting, they won't be able to speak unless someone raises their hand and I can allow them to speak.
So write in the chat box, what is a word that describes your initial reaction to this video? Truth, yeah. Very real for many people. Anything else? Overwhelming, exactly. Empathy, emotional burden. So having to carry out the responsibility while having to tend to your own mental health and how difficult that can be to balance. Emotional fatigue, exactly. So do you think that most people plan to become caregivers? Yeah, accurate and exhausting. Do you think she planned to become a caregiver? Do you think that most people plan that? No, no rule book, exactly. Anyone else? So what kinds of challenges did she describe regarding her own experience as a caregiver? So we mentioned emotional fatigue, exhaustion, being overwhelmed. What else does she describe? She talked about, let's say, her own mortality and her mother's mortality and the stress of knowing what's coming. The guilt of feeling when this is going to end, exactly. Anything else that she described? Not knowing what to do. Anything else? So the guilt of knowing when it's going to end and also not knowing what to do. Any other challenges that you noticed that she described? So I think she said that she has like maybe 4 or 5 hours a day to herself outside of looking after her mother, which has to be exhausting. Wanting to take care of her while also knowing that it's also causing a burden in some ways and feeling guilty for that. Exactly. So now that I've talked about the experiences of caregivers in general by showing this video, I want to focus specifically on the experiences of LGBTQ caregivers. So when it comes to LGBTQ caregiving, according to the CDC, 1 in 4 LGBTQ adults are caregivers. In addition, 43% of LGBTQ caregivers are women, only 10% are 65 and up, and 43% are caring for a parent or parent-in-law. So many LGBT older adults have experienced some form of discrimination or mistreatment, not only in the healthcare setting, but also when navigating employment and gaining access to social services. LGBT older adults tend to rely on other LGBT older adults for caregiving due to high rates of rejection or estrangement from their biological families, and because LGBT adults are less likely to have children. As a result, many LGBT older adults rely on their families of choice for support and are more likely to be living in isolation. So in cases where both the caregiver and the care recipient are LGBT, they may experience mistreatment in the healthcare setting and when trying to access support services. In cases where the caregiver is LGBT and the recipient is not, they may find it easier to navigate services for the recipient, but the caregiver may experience mistreatment. Oftentimes, the fear of not knowing whether it's safe to be out or the fear of being turned away for their identity can lead to increased stress, depression, and anxiety among LGBT caregivers. If a caregiver is having to maintain employment while carrying out their responsibilities, it may be difficult to find other caregivers who are LGBT affirming to share those responsibilities. Or some LGBT caregivers may feel the need to leave their jobs to pursue caregiving. Many caregivers are unpaid, and LGBT older adults are less likely to be financially ready for retirement. Oftentimes, caregivers who qualify for public benefits or assistance do not apply for them because they're overwhelmed with providing care. When it comes to end-of-life decision-making, if there are not written protections in place, LGBT caregivers and families of choice may not be legally recognized and can be easily questioned or contested by biological family members. When completing paperwork, many legal service providers may not recognize or think to include families of choice in their work. Overall, these concerns contribute to the issue of caregiver burnout, especially among LGBT caregivers who may experience these added burdens and may have access to limited service and support systems for assistance. To avoid experiencing burnout, there are numerous steps that LGBT caregivers can take to protect their mental health. I will turn it over to my colleague, Will, who will now discuss some of these self-care strategies.
So here we have a quote from Anbai Thich Nhat Hanh, a famous Buddhist monk. And it reads, "Go within and take care of yourself. Your body needs you. Your feelings need you. Your perceptions need you. Your suffering needs you to acknowledge it." It's a very simple but yet succinct quote that calls us home. It calls us to ourselves and the importance of being able to be present with what you are going through at any given time. The importance also of this is recognizing that each moment is different and it ebbs and flows as all things in life because of its impermanence. Given this particular part, being able to acknowledge how we feel, being able to acknowledge what we're thinking, what we're going through, makes it easier also for us to be able to share and speak up in terms of what our needs and our wants are. We pay a very heavy price when we hold it all in. Our bodies feel it, our minds feel it in all different kinds of ways. And so being able to take a moment to really come home to yourself, whether that be taking a 5-minute break, going for a quick walk around the house, sitting by a window, looking out, noticing the trees, whatever it may be that has helped you come home to yourself in that moment, please do so. Let's take a moment right now to take a deep breath in through your nose. As you're breathing in gently through your nose, exhale, nice and easy, gently. Take a few more moments to breathe in with mindfulness. Such a simple thing, and yet as you exhale, allow your shoulders to relax, letting go of what is going on for you. As you continue to breathe on your own, remember that it's very hard to function when we feel burnt out. And so we need to do everything that we can, even when we think we don't have enough energy or don't have the wherewithal or don't have the motivation to do so. It is important to help ourselves when we recognize, okay, you know what? Perhaps I need to step away. You can go on to the next slide. Sometimes you do have to step back, because if you are around, the constant pressure, the emotional burden to continue to provide, it is honorable, it is selfless, and it also takes a toll on the body, the mind, our spiritual resources, on all of ourselves. And so therefore, stepping back, being able to take a breather, being able to communicate to your chosen family, for example, hey, would you mind, giving me a break and doing this for me? Being able to share in community the responsibilities of caretaking and being able to step back is such an important aspect of self-care. And so we're going to be going into the aspect of looking at all of our different dimensions of well-being and wellness. You can go on to the next slide, please. Rutgers has developed through the Health and Wellness Committee these 7 different dimensions of wellness, and thinking about financial, academics, physical, spiritual, emotional, environmental, and social. And so when you think about what you're going through, you have to think about all of the aspects of who you are. And because all of these different elements play a role in our well-being, we want to be able to make sure that we are able to have a balance in our lives. This is merely a model, as there are many, many different kinds of models of wellness. And there are some that are 9, 8, simple as 5 or 4. But this is the one that we use specifically at Rutgers for our students. And so to give you a taste of what that might look like, you are able to focus on the different aspects and see, where am I doing well? Where am I not doing as well? Where do I feel like I need improvement? Where have I really neglected myself? And be able to really look at what are some of the ways in which you can start thinking about, how do I improve this or that part of myself? You can go on to the next slide, please. So here's a self-care plan that has 4 different dimensions. I invite you, if you like, to grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. I typically use an index card for this, because then you can carry this with you everywhere. For those of you that feel more comfortable using your phone, you can, open up a note for yourself where you can write it. But as you can see, there are 4 different dimensions, reactions being the first one, and that could be any type of reaction that you have, to any given situation that you're going through. When I use it, for the students whom I work with, it really is highlighting the different reactions that they have, whether it be going for exams or going home or going through difficulties, in relationships, or really struggling and suffering. And so it could be something as simple as, I'm not really paying attention to my eating as much, or I'm isolating myself. I am, losing interest in, activities that I used to do, all the way up to I'm having suicidal thoughts, and, I'm really concerned for my well-being. So that's reactions. Self really emphasizes the things that you get to do on your own, things that have helped you manage and get through and cope through these different reactions that you've had. So it could be something as simple as, I have a nighttime skin routine that I like to do. I will go for a walk. I might journal. I might listen to music. I might dance. I might do something creative that has helped me cope through all of these different things. So ultimately, things that are, don't require another person, ideally doesn't cost anything if it's possible, but things that you can do on your own. Supports are anyone whom you deem as someone who accepts you wholeheartedly and accepts and supports you, without question. Someone who's got your back, someone who you really can rely on to be there for you when you need them. And goals can be something as simple as what I'm going to be doing, tonight. What am I looking forward to doing? And then you have the longer term versions of what am I looking forward to doing on the weekends, or, in a couple of weeks from now. So really thinking about, what am I working towards, and really conceptualizing for yourself a wholeness about you. So I'm going to ask you to either draw, like a quadrant for yourself for these 4 different dimensions. I'm going to give you a few moments to, write down and create your own self-care plan. So once you have that, And feel free, if you feel comfortable, you know, to write as much as you can, to be as comprehensive as you can as well. So again, for the first one, in the first section, reactions. Again, these are any kinds of reactions that you have, from minor to really large. Anything from isolating yourself to, you know, needing to go for a walk because you're losing interest in things. Anything that allows you to know, I really need to take a step back and I need to take care of myself. So if you're crying a great deal, if you feel like you're hopeless, all of those different reactions are valid, you know, when we're going through a difficult time. And feel free to include some of the things that you've already written in the chat. You know, when you're noticing emotional fatigue or feeling exhausted, you know, feeling guilty and beating yourself up, feeling lost and not knowing what to do. And just a few more moments to finish up this particular section. Next is self. Again, this is all about the things that have helped you cope on your own without needing another person. So again, some of the examples could be making a cup of tea for yourself, stepping away and taking a break, listening to some calming and soothing music. It could be doing an artistic endeavor, drawing, painting, knitting, sewing, crocheting. Going for walks, of course, taking warm showers that feel like a liquid hug. Even creating, you know, a to-do list for yourself can be helpful. It helps, you know, minimize that feeling of being overwhelmed, as someone had mentioned earlier. To finish by a few moments. As we go on to supports, I invite you to write down anyone and everyone whom you consider to be a person of support for you, whom wholeheartedly accepts and affirms who you are and is there for you. It could be family members, your chosen family. It could be someone who makes you laugh. It can be, you know, a hotline that you know you can rely on, like suicide prevention. There's the Trans Lifeline. There's the Trevor Project. And so we'll move on to goals. Goals create something concrete for us to look forward to. When we get through and go through difficult moments and times, it can feel as if time stands still, as if the time is never going to end. And we need to be able to have things that we look forward to doing. So think about something you're looking forward to doing by the end of today. And then think about something that you're looking forward to doing by the end of this week. Perhaps something on the weekend. Right? Now that things are opening up in our world, we're able to hopefully expand a little bit more in a way that feels comfortable to us, and be able to be around people, places, things that we have not had a chance to be around in some time. So expanding our circle to include things that we can look forward to doing. This particular plan is a modified plan and is originally from a crisis response plan. And so it is used in moments of crises as well. And the goals can also be reasons to live. And so writing down, what are my future goals? What are my future plans? What are reasons to live? You know, are just as important to consider and to think about. Earlier in the video talking about mortality, right? It really highlights the things that are important in life, and being able to focus on those things and being able to accomplish and achieve them is something that keeps us going, moving forward. Take another moment to finish up this particular dimension. And know that at any point in time, you can revise the self-care plan to meet your needs, to meet the current moment that you're going through, because things change, you know, as always. And so having something as simple as the self-care plan can really help illuminate, you know, and help provide guidance. Some folks will literally carry this in their wallets, carry them in their purses, as a way to remind themselves, you know, to check in with oneself, to check in with how you're actually doing on an everyday basis. People keep them, you know, near their drawers or at their bedside table as a way to really, you know, remind themselves of the importance of coming home to oneself. Does anyone have any questions in regards to this particular self-care plan? Feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, so one of the things I'd like to do is to ask folks to volunteer, if you feel comfortable, to share some of the, you know, reactions that you have had in regards to any circumstances, particularly when it comes to being a caregiver. And feel free to know that, you know, this is completely voluntary. You are not in any way, shape, or form asked to share something that you don't feel comfortable with. So any particular reactions that have not been shared thus far?
You can also put it in the Q&A anonymously and I can read it out loud.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So any other reactions other than feeling overwhelmed, emotional fatigue, exhausted, or feeling guilty, not knowing what to do? Okay.
No, I don't see any comments or directed to me directly or in the Q&A.
So then let's move on to self. What are some things that have been really helpful to you? And this one I really invite you to consider sharing, because something that you do might help inspire someone else to do for themselves, or maybe that's something that, you know, they haven't thought about and are like, maybe I should try this out. So what are some things that have helped you cope, get through difficult reactions that you've had, no matter what the circumstances have been? And I know that I mentioned quite a few of them, you know, whether it be reading a book or going for a walk, yoga and meditation. Yes, very much so. One of two of my favorite things to do as well. Yes, talking to friends is part of support. Even though I felt bad leaving my caretaking responsibilities, walking in nature truly got me through it. Absolutely. Nature has such healing properties. Just being able to sit outside and listen to the birds, watch the trees swaying in the wind, you know, feeling the sun on your face, all of those different aspects, you know, walking in nature really has such healing potential. Other suggestions or things that you would share? Yes. Just disconnecting from electronics and really being with myself. Yes, absolutely. Electronics in and of itself can be very exhausting, and it can impact our sleep even. And so being able to step away from that and giving ourselves a break from the blue light of the screens is incredibly, incredibly helpful. Wonderful. So each person is going to have a different, you know, consortium of supports. And so we won't go through that particularly, but I want folks to focus on goals. You know, what are some things that you were looking forward to doing, whether it be end of today, this week, next month, within this year? What are things that you really look forward to doing? Getting back to slowly seeing friends and family, yes. Connection and community and family and friends are such an important aspect of well-being. Taking a short trip and traveling, yes, absolutely. Learning to reconnect without feeling paranoid, yes, definitely. And easing into things, right? Yes, taking oneself out of this space to do local travel. Absolutely. Even going for a drive, it can be very refreshing. Excellent. Again, as I mentioned, you know, thank you so much for giving your input and sharing your thoughts, you know, your own specific, you know, self-care tips and tricks and ways of really taking care of yourself, because it enables, you know, us in this space to take care of one another too, by being an inspiration to one another of things that do work. So the next couple of slides are really just in regards to what are the various different types of supports that are available. If you're seeking specific supports, you know, in regards to particular issue that you are grappling with, we have Psychology Today that can allow you to look at things by specialty and by location as well. There's pridecounseling.com that is very specific to making sure that we have providers whom are LGBTQ plus. We have therapists of color and have three different websites in which we can find therapists. And there's also by location. We have in New Jersey, the Institute for Personal Growth. New Jersey also has the Proud Center out of Somerville. And out of New York, we have Callan Lord. And out of Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia, a Mazzoni Center specifically. And these are just some of the LGBTQ cancer support resources available. That was from the Memorial Sloan Kettering's LGBTQ support page. Feel free to take a picture of this if you think that would be helpful.
This will be recorded as well, so I can also always send you a link of this presentation as well.
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, so I know that we wanted to take some time for questions, and I know that you have set it up, Haral, so that the evaluation link will be administered once people sign off. We can do questions before the next slide at this point. So anyone have any questions that you want to post, that you want to potentially have Haral unmute you, or if you want to just post it in the Q&A or the chat box, now is the time.